Thank you. I'm now calling the Zoning Commission to order. And I'm turning the beginning of this meeting over to our law director, please.
All right, if you're here on any item on the zoning agenda, if you're here to speak to this board, either for or against any item on the zoning agenda, please stand and raise your right hand. Ran out of air. If you're here to speak to this board on any item regarding zoning, please stand and raise your right hand. That's everybody. Please, you solemnly swear or affirm testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. All right, be seated, please.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lundy,
Here.
Commissioner Darrett.
Here.
Commissioner Oster.
Here.
Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner Schoonmaker.
Here.
Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Beeler.
Here.
Commissioner Daly.
Here.
Commissioner Jay.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Present.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you read the first item, please?
The first item is number 41, 3-B-24-RZ. It's a request of R. Jason Barnes for rezoning from A agricultural PR Plan residential up to 9 dwelling units pending to PR Plan residential up to 12 dwelling units per acre. The property is located at 8441 Old Middlebrook Pike, parcel ID 105 LB 047 in the 3rd Commission District.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Mr. Barnes, Jason Barnes. No hurry. Hi, would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
It's not on. Right. Button right.
Got it.
You're on. Again,
right.
sir?
Gotcha. Jason Barnes, 802 Level Road.
Thank you. Is there any opposition present to this? Seeing none, Director.
No, we've got it right here. She just raised her hand.
Oh,
Apologize for
I
the appearance.
apologize.
I just got off work.
that's all right. That's all right. There is opposition. Is that correct? Where is this person? All right. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. All right. The applicant will have 5 minutes to speak to this. The applicant will have 5 minutes to speak to this item. Go ahead, please.
I didn't know I had to.
Do you have anything you'd like to add, to say to it?
No, I thought that the plans that I submitted were pretty clear.
We'll have the commission read your recommendation, the planning commission read your recommendation.
Sure.
But you have nothing to add to it.
No, I think the unanimous vote by planning, surrounded by, well, I guess I've got a couple notes that we could go off of here.
Well, while you're looking those notes up, I'll go ahead and ask our director to read the recommendation of commission. Planning
you.
Commission.
Planning
Appreciate it.
Commission recommends that County Commission approve the PR Plan residential zone up to 12 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with the sector plan and surrounding development.
Thank you.
To the east, I'm bordered by CA. To the north, I'm bordered by Middlebrook Pike. To the south, I'm bordered by Old Middlebrook Pike. I have one resident that is 102 feet from my property that borders my property. There is another lot owner, but this lot is too small to build on. It is actually a parcel owned by another resident. I'm 54 feet from a 12 unit or 12 dwelling per acre zoned, owned by the Hensley. I'm 107 feet from a 12 dwelling unit zone owned by Lee, 115 feet from a 12 dwelling acre zone, Waynesboro HOA. I'm 102 feet from CA across the street, which is owned by Weigels or LMK. 136 feet from a multifamily, which is Country Club Apartments. So you can see that everything around me is, and again, the 102 feet from the closest house from me. I think the concern that I got an email from Ms. Oster last night was that she was not going to be approving this because it needed a landscape buffer. Happy to do that. The willing to put in the sidewalk along Old Middlebrook, that would also coincide with what LMK has done or is doing. Let's see, I think that's just about all I've got. I think that it fits the one-year sector plan that I was able to pull up yesterday, and then the growth plan that I guess is still being voted on.
All right, thank you.
How'd I do?
Pardon?
Under my time?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
I am.
All right, thank you. Will the opposition step forward, please? And would you please state your name and county of residence?
Yes, my name is Robin Griffin, and I have the property that adjoins where he wants to put in the townhomes. I have 8457 and 8453 Old Middlebrook Pike. I apologize because I wasn't able to come to the first meeting because there's been no signs posted anywhere on the property. The people behind me don't know what's going on either there. As of tonight, I even took pictures. There's still no signs of zoning or anything that's going on other than the property's been sold. My concern with that is there are properties around, there's condos behind me, but Old Middlebrook Pike is heavy traffic already. And my concern with putting 12 more units in there, minimum of 2 cars per house. You got kids, you could end up with 4 to 6 cars per unit there. Renters coming in and out at different times. At least the condos behind me are sold and maintained. They're not, changing people all the time. Another concern is that my daughter lives at 8457, and there's constant wrecks that end up in our yard from Old Middlebrook Pike onto Middlebrook. I wasn't able to get those statistics because I couldn't get a hold of the 911 statistics for that, the wrecks that happened there on Middlebrook. I'm also concerned that where those condos will be coming onto Middlebrook, there is no cut through. So everybody coming out of there will be forced to turn right, or it will throw the traffic back onto Old Middlebrook, which is already messed up, potholes, needs to be paved tremendously. So of course I'm against this because, if that does pass, I would like it to see fewer units going in there. And I definitely would like to see something besides a tree buffer. I would like to see some kind of, landscaping, either fence or wall like that is across the street on Middlebrook that blocks off the noise and the view of that, exchange there. But I know that there's the lady that lives next to me is an elderly lady, and was not able to speak. And her property rides right up to where the 2 acres will be joining there. And but I would just like you to consider all the traffic going in there. Fewer units would be, greater liability, less wrecks on Middlebrook and Old Middlebrook Pike. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments about this project? Commissioner Director Brooks, what would an example of the landscaping requirement be? This does look like a very condensed, awkward piece of property with the way the roads run on both sides of it.
You all have several different options that we reference on a fairly regular basis. So the type A screening, which is more dense, those are typically found along boundaries of commercial and industrial developments that are adjoining residential areas. And that's a continuous screening. And then there's also the type B screen. That's another one that typically screens parking and loading areas that adjoin residential and office districts. And that includes shrubs, trees, and also can include a masonry wall or timber fence with evergreen trees. And then we have a type C, which is partial, and those are typically found between adjoining residential properties.
All right. You did read the recommendation. Was there any additional report or anything to say to that? All right, thank you, thank you. Do you have a sense for what the recommendation might be as far as the landscaping goes in this?
For a landscape screening, we would typically recommend the type B or type C, which is the, type B again is the shrubs with a combination of evergreens and potentially a wall. And that seems it might address most of the concerns of the adjoining neighbor.
And Director Snowden, what, I know you don't have a concept plan, but what would your requirement be as far as entrance and access on that particular piece of property?
Yeah, Chair Lady, we would most likely grant full access. He has an access, or his property looks like it could possibly align with Roswell Road, which is one of the entrances into that subdivision. Obviously, that would create the fewest conflict points. So that would be our preferred location. And on Middlebrook Pike, obviously it's a state route. He would have a right in, right out at best if TDOT even allowed that. We have spoke to him. The adjoining property to the east is being being expanded to a new Weigel store.
Right.
We have asked Mr. Weigel, and he has agreed to install sidewalk along that portion of his new frontage. It's not there now. And then we will ask this gentleman to install sidewalks. So if you do reside in these developments, you'll be able to walk from his property all the way to the sidewalks on North Galahar View Road. So that's just kind of a brief snippet of what, from an infrastructure improvement, we would be asking of this individual and what that plan might look like.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments before I turn it over to the district commissioner? Seeing none?
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
Does Director Brooks know on these units, is this going to be a multi-story?
I do not know. I've not reviewed a site plan for the development that they want to do.
Okay, is this going to be a multi-story?
Please come forward.
It is. I had submitted plans and drawings to planning and met with them downtown to show kind of what I was looking at. It is a 2-story with a garage, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,457 square feet.
Okay, attached.
It is.
Okay, all right, thank you. And you may want to just stay here till we
Sure.
finish.
Is that a problem, sir?
No,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Been on my feet all
Commissioner
day.
Oster?
I'm going to lean on it.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Chair. I did speak with Mr. Barnes, emailed him. We've actually spoken a couple of times on the phone. He got his original zoning at 9. Planning went back and gave him 12. I'd stated I was more comfortable with 9, just hearing from other community members in that area. Old Middlebrook is a very small road if nobody's ever been over there. It has no shoulders. And we really don't know, as Director Snowden said, that we're going to get any right in, right out on Middlebrook with it being a state road. I can't imagine, just looking at it at any time of day, that TDOT is probably going to do that. But that's not for me to say. I just feel like it's very unlikely. So I have been comfortable with the 9 units. So my motion will be to approve 9 units. It's also going to be installing landscape buffer B, and we will also go ahead and add the condition of the sidewalks in front of the new development.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion with the conditions presented? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Your motion carries. Thank you.
And when can I apply for the 12 again?
Director Brooks, would you like to address that?
You have to wait a year to request.
1 year?
Correct.
Can I ask one more question? So the driveway would be off of Roswell, which you recommended. That's what we had planned. We're not doing the right in, right out off Middlebrook. TDOT had a lot of concerns with it being within 20 feet. The right in, right out within T, I have to hammerhead that for fire trucks. There would be 4 on the left, 4 on the right. So at this time, given a 9, I can build 3 of them and leave the 4th pad available. And then in 1 year can reapply to build that 4th one in to make it square. Is that what I understand?
Without reviewing your actual site plan myself, yes, if you want to request additional density on the property, you can do that within a year from now.
But until then, can build 3 of the 4 and leave that 4th pad dirt.
Yes, as long as you don't don't exceed the density approved.
I'm fine with
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Chair.
Oh, hold on one second. Did you have another question?
Just so you know, you can apply for 13 tomorrow as long as it's not 12.
Oh, thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
One moment, please. Next item, please.
The next item is number 42. It's 2-C-24-SP. It's a request of Millstone Ventures LLC for Northwest County Sector Plan Amendment from MDR Medium Density Residential and HP Hillside Protection to MDR and O Medium Density Residential Office and HP Hillside Protection. The property is located at 11471 Outlet Drive, parcel ID 130175 in the 6th Commission District.
Thank you. I see the applicant is here.
Yeah, Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street, here for Millstone Ventures.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to this item? Seeing none, Director Brooks?
Planning Commission recommends that County Commission approve the sector plan amendment to MDR O Medium Density Office Land Use Classification because of changing conditions in the area. The HP Hillside Protection Area will be retained.
Thank you. Did you like to speak to this item, sir?
Yes, Madam Chair. Really excited about this project. This is, I think, a unique opportunity. It's not often you find 18.707 acres of property on a road as underutilized as Outlet Drive that has the existing infrastructure in place that Outlet Drive has on it. And I think, when we're talking about finding areas to kind of mitigate against sprawl and find where you can concentrate density in a walkable area in the county. This is just the perfect fit for this type of development. It is right across the street from the Topgolf facility. In 2019, the town of Farragut changed. They created a new zoning district called the Outlet Drive Regional Entertainment and Employment District. It's a mouthful, but they did that to attract businesses like Topgolf. They've been discussing plans of a hotel there, of restaurants and other amenities. And if you don't know Outlet Drive, it's a 3-lane road, one going east, one going west, with a center turn lane, but it feels like a 5-lane road, as easy as it is. If you live in that area like I do and you need to get between Lovell Road and Campbell Station, Outlet Drive is the best place to do it because Kingston Pike's usually backed up, the interstate's usually backed up at most times of the day, but Outlet Drive has plenty of capacity. It's very pedestrian friendly as well. It has a sidewalk on one side of this location and a greenway at the other. And it's underutilized. There's plenty of commercial businesses in the county just east of there that really have not found a lot of opportunity to really to flourish and really meet its full potential. Pretty much the only business there that really has flourished is Cotton Eye Joe, and that's a different story altogether. But what we're asking for is to go from the medium density residential to medium density residential / office, which if you look at the location criteria in our current sector plans, that's traditionally considered a kind of a transition zone between low density residential and more intense uses. There is HDR sector plan immediately to the west at the apartments for the Tapestry, even though it's only built out at 18 and zoned at 18 units an acre. But there's the entertainment district across the street. There is Buddy Gregg, and there's a boat dealership just further, just on the other side of the intersection of Snyder. So this is a really an odd mix of land uses, and this is a nice transition zone to this older existing neighborhood that's RA. Now, there is that neighborhood there. It's been developed for quite some time. The unique thing about that neighborhood is, even though we'd be right next to them, they're kind of set back further from Outlet Drive. They don't have access to Outlet Drive. We don't have access to their neighborhood, or vice versa. All of our traffic will come on Outlet Drive, and their traffic has been going out onto Lovell Road, kind of to the northeast. So there's no real cross-contamination, if you will, of the traffic or the impacts. What we did, we've been very involved in trying to be transparent with what we're trying to do with this property, and we met with the neighbors. We sent letters out to the 10 neighbors that are adjacent to our property on the eastern property line, and we met with 6 of those households. They actually came to our meeting, and we showed them the plans and what our plans are. I mean, we are looking to zone this to OB so we can do between 12 and 24 units an acre on this piece of property. We've conceptualized it at 12 units an acre, but because of the size of the property and the opportunity it presents, we can kind of feather that density where we keep all the real high density adjacent to the existing multifamily properties, and next to the neighbors, we're looking at a townhome development. And we think that's really kind of a 2-story, kind of the same form and scale of the single-family residential neighborhood. And that's important. I think you heard Mr. Odom from the chamber talk about the largest demographic growing in this area is the 55 plus. And these types of developments are, they really cater to, one, young urban professionals looking for, a really nice place to live, but maybe not able to afford a home, but want that kind of a lower maintenance type living, or people that are wanting to downsize. And having a townhome like that really presents an opportunity. And if we've talked about our plans and what we try or wanting to build, even in the more traditional multifamily, those are air-conditioned corridors, garage entry, elevators. I mean, so something that really could speak to somebody who's not quite ready to go to an assisted living facility, but are looking to maybe downsize or something lower maintenance. So when we're talking about the Advanced Knox initiative and trying to look at building where there's existing infrastructure, this checks all the boxes. And that's no coincidence that the proposed place type for that property is SMR, Suburban Mixed Residential. When you look at the Appendix H use matrix, and you guys are familiar with this, right? I'm joking. I'm sorry. It's a bad joke.
That's okay, Ben. You can wrap this up.
I will. The RB is general residential, is a directly related use, and the OB is a partially related use. But what that's significant is the only reason OB allows this type of residential is because it incorporates within itself all the residential uses that RB allows. So even with the plans that we've been working towards, this RB zoning or OB zoning would make sense. The only reason we asked for OB was just to make sure we can meet a sector plan designation that kind of meets the current location criteria. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. We're really excited about this project, and we hope that you support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question for staff. I saw that staff recommended denial. Can you speak to that, Director Brooks?
Yes, Commissioner. Staff did recommend denial of the request. I think that we were challenged to find any recent changes to justify the change in the sector plan in our initial look at this. And additionally, staff looked at this as a transition between that higher density adjacent down to the RA zone property.
And the future land use map has it as suburban mixed residential, and that does overlay with the town of Farragut's urban growth boundary and their growth map, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioners, let me just apologize. This whole meeting, my platform doesn't seem to be working, and since we don't have lights anymore, I'm not able to track, so I have to kind of rely on the circle on your microphones. I think Commissioner Oster?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to really brag on you guys because it's kind of after my heart when a developer takes the time to go to the homeowners and get feedback and let them know what they're doing first is huge. And of course, we're going to brag on your representative as we did at lunch, but I just appreciate the project. I think it's a really good project. And I think that you guys are doing it the right way. So I just wanted to commend you on record for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schoonmaker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Snowden,
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
on Outlet Drive, where this property is located, is that the terminus of Knox County's jurisdiction of the road that you have from that point, everything west, and the town of Farragut has jurisdiction of everything to the right of that property or east, all the way to Lovell Road?
It's really strange. It's kind of, I think it looks like what we maintain is kind of some of the portion of their frontage as well as where the tapestry is and then a little bit to the west. So it kind of comes in and out of jurisdictions through there a little bit. And then we pick up, like we maintain the signal at Lovell, but so you kind of come in and out of the town of Farragut versus the county of Knoxville, unfortunately.
Okay, so would the entrance, have you been apprised as far as the entrance to these units? Where would that come in off of Knox County's jurisdiction?
It's my understanding, yes. I had spoken to both Mark Shipley and Darrell Smith at the town and asked clarity from them, because certainly we wanted to be in agreement with them. Based on my understanding, when we built Outlet Drive back years ago, we acquired the right-of-way that's the frontage adjacent to this property. So it's my opinion that that is the county's right-of-way, and we would permit the access as I've seen it being proposed.
Okay, but most people leaving this development would most likely go east to Lovell Road to have access to all the corridors.
It's hard to say. I mean, there's signals on both ends. There's draws on both ends. So I think a case could be made for somewhat of an equal traffic distribution. I mean, they both have interstate ramps at both Lovell and Campbell Station. So, I mean, haven't seen a traffic study yet, but I think a fairly even distribution could be argued.
Okay, thank you. And then this question is for Director Brooks. Because the town of Farragut is on the west side of the Tapestry development and south of this proposed development, is this property in the town of Farragut's urban growth area?
Yes, it is.
And so the Tapestry, when that was originally rezoned, was it originally 8 units per acre and then the developer got it bumped to 12, or was it originally 12 and then bumped to 18?
Let's see. They did have it increased to 18, but I believe that they started with 12. I'd have to look further back in the history.
Okay, and then this project is asking, they're 12 now they could have, and now they're asking for 18.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that'd be roughly 217 units on the 18 acres.
Is that a question for me? I'd have to do the math, but
Oh,
yes.
okay, yes?
I can clarify, we're not asking for a specific density to be imposed on this. We're not asking for the planned residential zone. We're asking for the OB, the office zone,
Which would
which
allow
allows
you-
all the uses that the RB allows.
Correct.
So it allows up to 12 by right, and
Yes.
somewhere between 12 and 24 would have to come through a use on review. So we're not asking for a specific, like 18, we're asking for
Okay.
somewhere in that range. We haven't done the full engineering. We've conceptualized it, and our traffic impact is intended to look at it as if we could do 24 units an acre on it, but I don't know if we'll be able to get that on it or not yet.
Okay, so that could be 250 units? I'm trying to do the math fast.
You're asking me to do math at the podium. That's never a good idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Brooks, is the urban growth area that Farragut deemed on a map in all of the town of Farragut, or does it extend beyond the town of Farragut?
It extends beyond the town of Farragut, the urban growth boundary for the town. There's
Can
a
you help?
sphere of
We've run into
influence.
this several times. Can you help us understand that? The town of Farragut has a very distinct property line. How is it that they can put their arms farther than their own property line and say, we think this is our growth area too?
Well, I can try to explain that, but when the growth policy plan was first developed, there was a lot of concern over annexation. And so the idea was these are areas that might be appropriate for further annexation. So I would say that was originally probably how they were proposed. I wasn't here at the time, but
Which is by state law not available at this
it's
point.
not available anymore.
Okay.
no.
I just, with all due respect to our friends in the town of Farragut, we've run into this several times. And I think the town of Farragut has in my opinion, they have a definitive property line and we have a definitive property line and we should respect each of those and not, because what would be the difference between imagine us creating a proposed land use map that says we think this particular area inside of the town of Farragut is what we think it ought to be versus our jurisdiction. They would absolutely lose it. So I just think that's not a factor here, and we ought to stick to our own actual property lines and focus on what we control.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up.
Commissioner Schoonmaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did run the numbers. If you build it out at 18 units an acre, that's 324 units. If you build it out at 24 units, that's 432 units.
Right, and that gives us the opportunity to kind of keep the higher density next to the tapestry and kind of feather it down to doing the two-story townhomes on the eastern side. It kind of allows us that flexibility and also to build in certain amenities like, we have proposed here a pocket park, some trailways. One thing I forgot to mention with the neighborhood that they asked for a privacy fence and an increased landscaping buffer, and we're happy to provide that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This being in my district, I am very impressed with the homework that's been done on this. I think this plan is beautiful. I think that the location is extremely appropriate given Outlet Drive. To my commissioner in District 5, I might say I can see the cash registers cha-chinging in the town of Farragut at the moment. So I have absolutely no problem recommending this. And I really appreciate what you did with the neighbors that are nearby. I mean, you all did not hide from this. You went straight to them. You spoke to them. You made some promises that we'll see to it that you keep. So having said that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the MDRO land use classification because of the changing conditions in the area.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Hill, second by Oster. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 1 no. Let the record show. Schoonmaker, nay. Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is number 43, 2-F-24-RZ. It's also a request of Millstone Ventures LLC. This is for rezoning from PR Plan Residential up to 12 dwelling units per acre to OB Office, Medical, and Related Services. And the property description is the same as the previous item.
Thank you. Is there any opposition? Seeing none and recognizing the applicant, Director Brooks, would you read the recommendation, please?
Planning Commission recommends that County Commission approve the OB Office, Medical, and Related Services Zone.
Thank you. Mr. Mullins?
Don't have anything additional to add, except we're here to answer any questions if there's any additional concerns or conversation. Thank you.
Commissioners, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion that we approve OB Office, Medical, and Related Services. Motion by Hill, second by Ward. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Your motion carries. 1 no. Sorry. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item number 44 is 3-D-24-RZ. Request of Masana Investments LLC for rezoning from A agricultural to PR Plan Residential up to 5 dwelling units per acre. The property is located at 616 North Wooddale Road, parcel ID 061057 in the 8th Commission District.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? You step forward, please, with your name and county of residence.
Hey, Scott Davis, P.O. Box 11315, Knoxville 37939.
Thank you. Is there any opposition on this present? Would you please come forward?
My name is Herb Anders. I live in Ruggles Ferry community in Knox County.
Thank you. If you'll hold on just a minute, I'll ask for the recommendation.
Okay.
Director Brooks?
Planning Commission recommends that County Commission approve PR Plan Residential Zone with up to 3 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with the sector plan and surrounding development, subject to 1 condition.
Thank you. The applicant has 5 minutes to speak to this, as well as the opposition.
I appreciate your all's time and appreciate your service. My oldest daughter happened to be at this meeting and she just sent me a text and she goes, "How do you do this all the time?" So I appreciate y'all's time. I would respectfully request that y'all approve as per staff recommendation, as per voted on 13-0 by the Planning Commission. I believe it meets all the criteria required. It's consistent with the zoning, consistent with the area. And again, I appreciate y'all's time and respectfully request you approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the opposition like to speak? Mr.
Yes, I'd like
Anders?
to say I'm representing the Ruggles Ferry community. And since development has started in that area and many proposed developments, we have made as a community a strong point that we're not against development. We are oftentimes opposed to the density of that development. We don't think that it is the higher density developments are a fit for the rural community. In the Asheville Highway, Andrew Johnson Highway, Holston River corridor, in that area, approximately 6,000 acres. The average lot size is 7 acres. Many rural farms in excess of 100 acres. And it's been in the rural state for many, many years. One gentleman here tonight was born in that community and he's 70 plus years old. And he was born on the farm that he currently lives on. And we have those types of farms in our community. Again, we're not against development. we like responsible development, and the proposed or the recommended 3 units per acre, we feel for this piece of property, it's 23 acres with approximately 4 acres of slope protection. There's a high-powered line runs across it, which will get another acre and a half, 2 acres perhaps. So that means 69 houses could be built on approximately 17 acres, which puts it in almost 4 units per acre as the build out. And I realize that 3 units per acre is how that's calculated. I'm very familiar with that. I would ask that my preference is for the development to be not approved. And but I realize that we're not against development. I would like to see it done at a maximum of 2 units per acre, which is sort of in line with what's coming up on the comprehensive plan. We feel that would maybe be appropriate. Also, Wooddale Road is not 18 feet wide, and it's approximately a quarter of a mile off of Ruggles Ferry, and that road needs improvement. And I don't think we should saddle the developer with those type of improvements. I think what he does on site and is acceptable and taken over by the county and all like that. But we as a county need to take responsibility for providing the infrastructure to these developments and not making it an unsafe access to such developments. It's important to the communities to have that, and it's very narrow road, access to that road, and with the proposed subdivision that the road's 26 feet wide, it's approximately 10 feet wider than the road that accesses that subdivision. So it's not a good fit for the community. I would like to recommend or request that you deny the project, and if you choose to move forward with it, limit it to 2 units per acre. I would also like to say that during this process, and I talked to Mr. Davis prior to this coming up, and I appreciated one thing that he said tonight. I've elevated from the vocal minority to the elite activist, and I am neither. I'm a concerned citizen for the communities that we live in, not just Ruggles Ferry, but all of the county and the rural areas. So the labels that we put on groups such as Ruggles Ferry, the Corrington, Ritta, and all that community shouldn't happen. I have great respect for what you people do and for what our planning commission does. I was a planning commissioner for about 7.5 years, and I respect highly what y'all do and the decisions you have to make. I know it's difficult in many times, and I know we're not going to please everybody. And I would ask that you be conservative in your decisions that you make here tonight. And I appreciate your input, and I appreciate the commissioners that I've contacted regarding this project and your feedback to me and to other peoples that have contacted you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners?
If you tapped your screen, touch your screen.
Commissioner Daly?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Snowden, Director Snowden, I'm sorry. Is the entrance going to be on Wooddale, and do they have the sight distance there and the speed limit and all that? That looks like a concern. You can't tell by this map.
And we haven't obviously seen site plan specifically, but it's hard to say if obviously we will require them to have line of sight on Wooddale. And then, potentially make some improvements to Wooddale Road because, to Mr. Anders' point, it is a little bit narrower on the north end versus the south end of Ruggles Ferry.
Is that all you had to say? Commissioner Jay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Brooks, what is the one condition?
The one condition is that the rear of the parcel with slopes of 25% or greater at approximately beyond
Oh, I see it
the
here.
960 contour line.
Okay. All right,
Left
so that's
undisturbed.
the slope protection. Okay. Mr. Snowden, I drove this property this weekend and it looks, if I'm correct, the access, although it was hard to get up and I was on private, it was clearly private property to a certain point, is this little sliver right next to parcel 55, right? I mean, it's a little narrow, it's like a driveway almost, but is that a county road or is that just an access easement?
Sorry, I'm looking at it now. It's not a county road. It's looks like to be an easement for a couple of parcels.
So the entrance wouldn't really be able to go up that?
No, sir.
Okay, so it really is going to have to hit Wooddale. And so you'll have to do, based on the concept plan, you'll have to determine if road improvements are warranted. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that'll come later. Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Beeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate Mr. Anders' remarks. I mean, we're really all just country folks trying to, protect our interests in this. And whether we're from Ruggles Ferry or Croydon or wherever we're from, not all of us are farmers, and not all of us live on acreage. Some of us live in subdivisions. But the point is, everybody has interest in this that they're trying to protect. And I do have tremendous respect for Herb. We've talked a lot during this process about many different things. Mr. Davis has been a friend for a long, long time, since well before I had any interest in county commission or land use issues. So respect both these men and what they are trying to fight for. The issue with this one, it really comes down to the parameters of what we use to make these decisions. And this property is in the planned growth area. It actually borders the urban growth area. This, could easily qualify for a 5 per acre application. And when you get down to density here, to say no to 3 per acre is really more of a preference issue than anything. I mean, it meets every criteria. I would like to see, Mr. Snowden, if it's possible, to make some modest improvements to Wooddale Road, because there's really only about 5 modest-sized lots between Wooddale Road and Ruggles Ferry Pike. But, regardless of my preference, I think the parameters of what's before us on the plans, and not only on the plans, but as I look at the plan that we're going to be considering here in a few minutes, this is proposed to be in the suburban residential area, which also supports up to 5 units per acre. So I will offer a motion to approve this per the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And also with the ask of Mr. Davis that this would be as clustered as possible to preserve as much of this land. Thank you.
Second. We have a motion on the floor by Beeler, second by Jay. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 1 no. No, Frazier's aye.
Madam
Nay,
Chair.
please.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
May I
yes.
make one more further comment?
Certainly.
I've known this man for a lot of years as well, Richie, and I have great respect for him. And this is in no ways personal. We talked about this.
We know.
And I appreciate what he does. And I'm not one of those guys that says not in my backyard. We have a difference of opinion of density, and y'all have spoken, and I'll respect that. And I'll twist his arm to see how it's done.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anders. I appreciate
Thank you all
that.
for your service, and we'll work with Mr. Anders and the neighbors on trying to make this a good development for them. Thank you all again.
Mr.
Appreciate it.
Davis. We appreciate it. Appreciate you both. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 45 is 2-E-24-SP. It's a request of Smith Built Homes for a Northeast County Sector Plan Amendment from agricultural to LDR Low Density Residential. The property is located at 6701 Roberts Road, parcel ID 022-00514 in the 8th Commission District.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? If you'd identify yourself, please, with your name and county of residence.
Josh Sanderson, 4909 Ball Road, Knox County.
Thank you. Is there opposition to this? Mr. Murphy, if you'd introduce yourself, please.
Kevin Murphy, Knox County.
Thank you. Director Brooks, a recommendation.
Planning Commission recommends that County Commission approve the RR Rural Residential Land Use Classification because it is in character with the surrounding agricultural and rural residential area.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes to speak. Mr. Sanderson.
Good evening, Commission. My family owns a farm, raw land on Roberts Road. As the landowner, we don't want to farm it. We don't want to mow it. We want to develop it. That's not the popular opinion, but as the landowner and as the rules and regulations that this government has set before us, we have every right to check the boxes that are put before us. We asked for 3 units an acre. The growth policy plan came before us. It went from 3 units an acre down to 2 units an acre. Okay, we are here to accept the 2 units an acre as the commission wishes. Next thing we have to do is prove there's infrastructure. We had a traffic impact study done. It said no additional infrastructure will be needed for this project. Okay, box checked. Then we have to prove that it has sewer, water, and electric that can house the development. Well, there's a development that's 3 units an acre right next door, so we checked that box. So now that we have compromised down to 2 units an acre, we've checked every box that has been put before us. We're asking you to zone this 2 units an acre and let us build a development in Gibbs for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I ask you to support the recommendation of staff, which was to deny the sector plan amendment. The original application was for LDR. Staff recommended denial. Planning Commission recommended rural residential. Staff got this correct. The only reason Planning Commission gave for a different recommendation is because it is in character with the surrounding agricultural and rural residential area. Now, that's quite the stretch for the imagination. Now, there actually are boxes that you need to check when you are requesting a sector plan amendment. There's criteria, and you have to meet one of the 3. Staff's report clearly called out that this amendment request doesn't meet any of those 3 criteria. First, there is no obvious or significant error in the sector plan. The 2015 sector plan update deliberately set almost all Northeast Knox as agricultural, and that occurred well after the subdivision to the south was developed. That subdivision to the south actually reverted back to agricultural in that sector plan. So there was no update. And I'd also argue that the sector plan designation of agricultural is absolutely correct for this property. This parcel meets all of the location criteria for the agricultural land use classification in the sector plan. In fact, it meets the even stricter classification criteria to be considered agricultural conservation sector plan designation, which is where you have undeveloped tracts with the best soils for agriculture are considered as the primary areas for the agricultural conservation land use. This tract is undeveloped with approximately 65% of prime or locally important farmland soil on this parcel, according to the soil map on KGIS. The last criteria, there has not been trends in development, population, or traffic that warrant reconsideration of this plan. Period. There's nothing happening out there. So this fails to meet any criteria that would justify a sector plan amendment. Finally, I want to call your attention to the principles on page 28 of the general plan. Under section 6, that states that prime agricultural land should be protected for continued farm use, and the landscape of the rural areas designated in the growth policy plan should be conserved, including open space, historic sites, and farm buildings. Now, while you're pondering this case, I know we're also thinking about item 35 later. The draft sector plan, as it was recommended by the staff to Plan Commission, had 4 criteria. And those were essentially the 3 that we have today, plus an additional criteria that proposed changes support policies, goals, and objectives of the plan. The original final draft said 2 criteria. 2 of those 4 need to be met. Planning Commission changed it to being 1 criteria and added a little bit more on roads, I think. But if you find that you can approve this sector plan amendment under the existing criteria tonight, well, that's pretty much the same ones you're going to have in the future. So you will see how easy it is to amend the new comprehensive land use plan. So in conclusion, they haven't met any of the criteria for a sector plan amendment here. It actually is great agricultural land. Some of the farmers in the area have remarked about how dark that soil is and how what robust production there is of hay and silage and other material from that land. So I'd ask you to deny this sector plan amendment.
Are there any comments from commissioners? I see no lights. Oh, Commissioner Schoonmaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarification, Director Brooks. So what Mr. Murphy testified to, is that an accurate statement that the applicant did not meet any of the qualifications to have a sector plan changed, is what your employee said?
The Planning Commission did say that they did meet the criteria and didn't recommend LDR, but recommended the rural residential.
No, I'm asking, did your staff, when they reviewed it, your employees, they said that it didn't meet the criteria?
Our staff said deny the LDR land use classification because it'd be out of character with the surrounding agricultural and rural residential area.
Okay, so Mr. Murphy's comments then are correct?
Can't speak. I'm not going to speak to all of Mr. Murphy's comments. I'll just share what the staff's recommendation was.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on this? Quickly, sir, do you have a comment?
No, I'll leave it to the commission.
Seeing no other lights, Commissioner Beeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 7-6 vote. So, Ms. Brooks, what was the Planning Commission's justification for approving this sector plan amendment to rural residential?
They felt that that particular land use classification was in character with the surrounding area.
Okay. So there is a parcel, they're not a parcel now, but there is a subdivision right next to this property that is zoned PR at up to 3, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And there is a parcel across the road that is zoned PR at up to 4.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So how did those zonings come about? Were they there before sector plans or?
Let's see, so the one to the south, that was approved for a sector plan amendment from Ag Rural Residential to LDR in 2002. And then I don't know that our staff report speaks to the one across the street, but I can look into the date of that one.
Okay. So the neighboring parcel then was approved for a sector plan amendment?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is tough because I'm giving my hand away, but I do support the vast majority of the amendments to the to the comprehensive plan that we're going to be considering. But at the same time, I look on this handout that Mr. Murphy gave us, talking about the issue priorities for residents for local government, and the first one was increasing the amount of housing that is affordable for most families, and the second one is protecting open spaces like fields and forests and farmland. I mean, so they are like right there next to each other. And that's where all 11 of us are living right now, right there between those two. And, you know, like I said, I support the vast majority of the amendments. I agree with you guys on most things. I wish I agreed with you on everything, but I do not. Because when push comes to shove, I'm in the people business, not the land business. That's just who I am. That's my heart, and it is my calling. I am about people, and people need houses. And they're not looking for them in the city. They're looking for them in a place that's good to raise a young family. My point, here's the point I'm making, okay? Along Washington Pike, from Murphy Road to the county line, which is approximately 12 miles, there are 2 subdivisions of any size. Neither of them are very large. There are 2. One was developed in 2002. The other was developed in 2004. So in 20 years, there have not been any new subdivisions developed on Washington Pike between Murphy Road and the county line. There are 2 subdivisions on Roberts Road between Emory Road and Rutledge Pike. Neither of them are very large. One was developed in 2005, the other in 2007. So in 17 years, there hasn't been a new subdivision developed on Roberts Road. The point I'm making is not that we need a bunch more subdivisions. The point I'm making is I believe reasonable growth is possible and reasonable and feasible. You know, I hear people say, we know growth is coming, we're not against growth, but then every time growth is mentioned, it's a no, it's a no, it's a no. And I struggle with that. I do, because not people from California, but people from here, people from my own community that want to stay, that struggle to find a house they can afford to buy. You know, we know what the median housing price has done. In the past several years, it's almost doubled. It's gone from $225 to $425, I think, something along that line. My church just called a new worship leader. He and his family moved here from Alabama. They can't find a home because to find a home comparable to the one they're leaving in Alabama would cost over $500,000. And they're not living in a $500,000 home there. And I just struggle that we keep saying no, no, no to any kind of development. And there hasn't been very much. There's been a lot around Harbison's Crossroads, which is like a town center. But, you know, what I could see here is a conservation subdivision. I believe this is going to be, Ms. Brooks, let me ask you this question, okay? In a rural living place type, could you explain what the density levels that are permitted in a rural living place type, both in and out of the planned growth area?
As currently proposed in rural.
Correct, yes, currently proposed.
In rural living. Densities up to 5 dwelling units per acre can be considered.
Okay. If the 2 to 5 were removed from the rural areas, it would still be 1 to 2, correct?
Well, let me be clear. In the rural area, you're capped at 2. No more
Okay.
than 2 can be considered.
Okay, but it is 2 as proposed now.
As approved with the growth policy plan, yes.
Right, it's 2. So, I mean, I guess it comes down to whether you think this sector plan is appropriate. And I mean, I'll put it out there for a motion to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation for the sector plan and let the vote go as it may.
We have a motion on the floor to approve by Beeler, a second by Ward. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Opposition, I heard nays by Lee and by Frazier. Is that correct? Thank you. Motion passes. Next item, please.
Number 46 is 2-J-24-RZ, also a request of Smith Built Homes. This is for rezoning from A agricultural to PR Plan residential up to 3.0 dwelling units per acre. And the property description is the same as the previous item.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? I need for you to introduce yourself again, please.
Josh Sanderson, 4909 Ball Road, Knox County.
Thank you. Is there opposition to this also? Mr. Murphy, I need for you to please come forward again.
Kevin Murphy, Knox County.
Thank you. Director Brooks?
Planning Commission recommends that County Commission approve the PR Plan Residential Zone up to 2 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with the surrounding development and a minor extension of the zone.
Thank you. Mr. Sanderson, would you like to speak to your project?
I have no comments to make.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, do you have comments to make?
Yes, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to thank you. You've made the case for why we think we need stricter criteria for amending the future land use map. Because that one, we believe strongly, and the staff reports went through all those criteria and did state that each one of those wasn't met. So in the face of that, this is what we got. Regarding the rezoning, I urge you to deny the request planned residential. This property is in the middle of an established rural area, and the zoning requests are just that. They're requests for legislative action. There is no obligation to grant that request, and a valid option is to not rezone. Today, the owner has all the land use rights that they did when they purchased the property previously, just a few months ago. The ordinance has 4 criteria that must be met for a zoning map amendment request, and it says shall be met, and it means all 4 of them. I don't believe it meets 3 of them. Criteria A states that there must be substantially changed or changing conditions, and here there aren't any changing conditions. As Commissioner Beeler, as you just stated, there's not been a lot of new subdivision development out there at all. The natural environment isn't changing. There haven't been notable transportation projects in the area recently. The subdivision to the south was approved in 2002. But if anything, conditions in this area are changing to much less of a degree than the rest of the county. Criteria C in the zoning ordinance, not having adverse impact has not been met. The proposed amendment has a direct and indirect adverse effects. The direct effect is the loss of 50 acres of prime farmland soil that we will never get back. And additionally, the planned residential zone has no development standards to ensure compatibility with the adjacent agricultural uses. Finally, criteria 4, consistency with the general plan is not met. As stated previously, the general plan actually states that has a principle that prime agricultural land should be protected for continued farmland use. That's not been met. I think this application is an example of where we need better standards. There might be some ways to do this development in a way that actually could work out there. There's been, now I don't want you to confuse this with rural conservation, but there's been a call in for all of our plans since the 2003 general plan to enact conservation subdivisions. That's where you can say, we're going to set aside a certain amount, and then that will be either land trust or it'll be a farm or something. And then for the rest of it, that's where you can develop, and we'll put the density in that area. Now, there have been calls for that. Your Hillside and Ridgetop Protection Plan has a model conservation subdivision ordinance that was written for the county and included as an appendix that is there ready for you to adopt, but nobody's ever actually adopted it. So we don't have that tool in our toolbox today. But this is something we've been calling for years. So there are ways to have our cake and eat it too, but because we haven't acted, we get faced with this. The only option that you have is planned residential. You can try and attach conditions on it and come up with those right now, but that's not in the application or staff recommendation. So I urge you to deny this rezoning because you could actually reconsider it, or they can reapply later when you do have a toolbox. Maybe it's when they have a new UDO or something, but you have that. We just don't have land use regulations that let you develop this really well yet. So thank you.
Quickly.
Yes, brief comment. We have every intention of clustering this development. We don't want to run roads, sidewalks, and everything that the county and the tax burden, or the tax is on the burden of the people. We have every intention of clustering this subdivision and leaving the least amount of raw land disturbed and leaving it as open space or amenity area or green space, something that people that buy our homes are getting accustomed to. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick question, Mr. Sanderson, is 75 acres, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you have any guesstimate how, when you, and I appreciate your clustering, that how much of that actually may still remain undisturbed?
I could not, we haven't done a site plan yet,
All right.
knowing that this whole process was
All right,
kind
I
of in
just
the works. Yeah.
Wondered. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Jay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Murphy, I have a question, if you would. And this applies to this particular zoning, but I think it applies to so many others as well. You've mentioned several times that farmland should be protected. If you have a property owner that says, I don't want to be a farmer, are you suggesting that you're forcing that person to say your land is only available for farming and you can do nothing else with it? I mean, wouldn't that erode our basic tenets of private property rights?
So the rights that they currently have are what they're currently zoned for. So it's currently zoned agricultural. That's what are their vested rights. You're asking about changing land use zoning, being a legislative decision. That can be changed, and that's where county land policy comes into effect. There are absolutely ways that we could actually have good policy and regulations that would allow them to explore opportunities for some development while conserving some, and we could have a win-win. Been asking for that for years.
What if somebody doesn't want, what if any one of the neighbors that are here today, if their children don't want to be a farmer? Don't we, or what if at some point they don't want to be a farmer and they want to pay for their kids' education or for their retirement or for anything? Are you suggesting that this body start saying this is what you should use your land for and that only, and kind of handcuff the community into what the future decisions could be?
So it currently is a farm, and that's the value that is vested in it.
No, but
now, anything
this
else,
isn't a farm. This is a field.
Mm-hmm. This
is not being farmed, right?
I believe it's been farmed for a number of years up until now, yes.
Okay. But I guess this is sort of a bigger philosophical question, but you've advocated for this several times. I just want to be really clear if as this body moves forward, are you advocating that, we tell people what to do with their land very proactively if they choose not to? Because this might be this particular development, but the next month it may be somebody else that isn't in the development business that owns a piece of land and says, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're asking, what's the value of the land? And the value of the land is a combination of current zoning and uses that are permitted. And then also there's speculative value of what might I be able to get for it in the future.
I don't think I'm asking about the value of land. Okay. I'm asking about what's the purpose of government's role in determining how you should live your life. I think that's what I'm getting to. And I respect everybody that wants to live in certain places or to work in certain professions or to pursue certain passions or to develop continued legacies of their families. I'm trying to better understand how this body, what is our role as government to versus the private property rights and the free will of a people. And I'm just sort of trying to clarify a little bit. And maybe we can have a longer outside discussion.
I appreciate it. That is the tricky area, and that's why land use is so not only contentious but important, because land use policy really does. It impacts our community in ways that are permanent and difficult to unerase, especially when you're taking vacant, undeveloped land and developing it. It's really hard to get that farmland back. So that's it. Yeah.
We'll continue the discussion. Thank you.
Commissioner Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Snowden, I know Mr. Sanderson said that they had done or conducted a traffic impact study and it didn't indicate any improvements on Roberts Road. Looking at Roberts Road, do you agree with that? Or, this is a pretty narrow road with no shoulders, correct?
Roberts is probably in the neighborhood of 20 feet wide, so I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as narrow. It does have some areas that maybe the shoulders need to be improved on. But it's been a minute since I've looked at the traffic impact study. I know they looked at turn lane thresholds at both Emory and Washington Pike, and I believe based on this density, there weren't any off-site improvements recommended as part of that study.
So going forward, if this were to be approved, the county would not require any improvements?
Based on what we've saw from their traffic study, we don't necessarily believe that there are off-site improvements necessary. There may be some shoulders that we need to look at that are existing issues, but I do not believe, based on the study that we saw, that there would be off-site improvements required by the developer.
Thank you.
Seeing no other lights, Commissioner Beeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's nothing much more I can say as far as I've stated my heart, my position. I move for approval at 2 units per acre.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Beeler, second by Ward, for 2 units per acre. Seeing no other lights, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Let's take a roll call on this, please.
Commissioner Ward.
Aye.
Commissioner Schoonmaker.
No.
Commissioner Hill.
Yes.
Commissioner Lee. No. Commissioner Beeler.
Aye.
Commissioner Daly. Aye. Commissioner Jay. Commissioner Frazier. Commissioner Lundy.
Aye.
Commissioner Darrett. Commissioner Oster.
Aye.
This motion passes. Next agenda item, please.
Item number 49. It's 12.
Yeah, that's
The other two were deferred.
That's
tonight.
correct.
Okay. 12-H-23RZ. Request of Tanya Barris for rezoning from BP Business and Technology and TO Technology Overlay to OB Office Medical and Related and TO Technology Overlay, located at 10105 Dutchtown Road and 1009 Mabry Hood Road, parcel IDs 118-165 and 118-168. And this is in the 3rd Commission District.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Oh, she's not. All right. Commissioner Oster, did you have some comments on this?
I did. I actually spoke to her today, and she doesn't live here currently. She's in Nashville, and her husband's going through chemo treatment. She will be here in May, but I'm still okay with doing this. As I said, I was suspending the commission rules for the reason that she had her wreck, and also her husband's going through treatment. So I'm going to make a motion to suspend the commission rules to add 12-H-23-RZ to the May zoning agenda. Request of Commissioner Oster.
We have a motion on the floor to delay item until May zoning by Oster, second by Ward. Do I see any lights? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, yeah. That's it. All right. That concludes our zoning. Zoning is adjourned. Commissioners, we're going to take a 10-minute break and come back for our final round.